achieved.
I can openly admit that I am not a Daniel Cormier fan. But at the same time, I can appreciate his victories over Anthony Rumble Johnson, his victory over Alexander Gustafsson, everything he did before that. But I was of the opinion, and still am of the opinion, that he was simply a placeholder as the light heavyweight champion until John Jones returned. If Daniel Cormier had defeated John Jones, well then quite honestly my opinion would have changed. But I believe his championship run was a product of circumstance. Now, at the same time, I watched the fight, the main event, and I saw the post-fight reaction of Cormier and the emotion he displayed in defeat. And it's incredibly upsetting to see the number of people who are coming down on him for being emotional, being upset, crying, and breaking down. And I can, I have no problem with it. Initially, I was like, oh, and then you realize, no, this guy has worked so long for this. This has been a fight that has been building for a long time, and he was just finished for the first time in his career in a bout that, will certainly define who he is as a competitor. That will be one of the most the most significant scenarios of his career right there, and it's not a good one. And all the work he put in, everybody, he felt he let himself down, he let everyone else down, and he broke down emotionally, he cried in the cage, and that's fine. If you are one of those people who have never been in a situation like that, that's fine. If you've never emotionally invested yourself into something, wanted something so badly, wanted to have something and either couldn't get it or simply can't have it, then you have no place criticizing another individual who was in a position like that and was turned away. And I'm just one of those people who looks at these situations and says, if you put all that effort in and you don't make it, still it's a good thing. It's something to build upon. And shame on those individuals who dumped all over Daniel Cormier for his post-fight reaction. On a more lighter note, I do have an update. I've been using the last couple of my shows to talk about my pursuit of, actually sparring or rolling, if you will, with a trained jiu-jitsu practitioner. And I have a couple updates, a couple things. Over the weekend, I had an opportunity to say to the individual that I've been, joking around with, goading, if you will, into attempting to teach me a lesson. I offered the individual a chance to choke me, and they choked me twice. They used first a single-arm collar tie. The second time, they actually went for a full rear naked choke. No defense. No defense whatsoever. And fuck was I impressed. That was something else. I was of the opinion that I could probably withstand a choke, and, wow, no, not even close. Once it was applied, it was tight as fuck, and she locked it down, and I tapped very quickly. And I will never, ever, ever again criticize anyone who's been choked and tapped quickly. Conor McGregor, anybody. Yuri Alcantara, and anybody who taps quickly to a choke, absolutely do it. Get the fuck out of there, because that's what I wanted to do. Now, building on that as well, I did make the suggestion that me being me and her being her, and yes, her, I have no problem telling you I got my ass kicked by a girl because she's an animal. I said you couldn't do it if I actually attempted to defend. Well, we had that scenario, not in a jiu-jitsu gym or anything like that. We had that scenario play out, just goofing around, and I was holding my own, just basically spinning, keeping her moving, just standing, and then I made the mistake of sticking my head where I shouldn't have, and I realized what I'd done wrong, and I attempted to jam my hand into as a defense against, again, I think it was a guillotine, but fuck, it was tight, and she didn't get it on my neck, but she was crushing my hand into the side of my face, and I realized I have two options here: continue to have my hand and face crushed, or tap. So I did the latter. I've got some work to do if I'm going to have any chance of retribution, but nonetheless, fucking impressive. I'll tell you that much. Very impressive. Enough of that, though. Hopefully I'll have an update later for that. But welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming August 5th event, which will take place in Mexico City, Mexico, featuring 6 main card fights. I will be giving you predictions for 5 of those fights. I'll tell you why momentarily. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. This is actually the only UFC event in August. Now, it gives way to the Mayweather-McGregor super boxing fiasco fight thing that I'm very much looking forward to. I'm going to try and do a show for that. Not a prediction show, just a commentary. But yeah, it's the last event in August. We then head to September for the UFC, and it's very busy again, but still keep that in mind. So, let that cash fly if you're going to be laying some bets down. Additionally, I haven't actually done a recap of UFC 214. And the reason I haven't done that recap is because I actually want to do a post-fight show. I haven't done a post-fight show in a long time. I'm hoping to do that after this event is over and go back and readdress everything, talk about some stuff, talk about John Jones, talk about Daniel Cormier, and all the other things that went on with that card. Obviously, Tyrone Woodley, very interesting cyborg. There's a lot of stuff to dive into there. So that's why I want to do. That's why I haven't done an actual post-fight recap. I'm a little bit behind on my website again. Interesting how that, my whole thing, interesting how that happens. It's Wednesday afternoon. I'm shooting the video. Traditionally, I've got this video done by Monday night, Tuesday morning at the latest, but not recently. Not recently. Either way, we got 5 main card predictions. As I said, I'm going to predict. There's a 6th fight in the card, which I just didn't have time to get to because it's two relatively unknown fighters. One was an injury replacement. I'll be probably breaking that down in the prelim section, but I just wanted to get the show out, so I went with the other 5 fights. We'll get to that 6th fight eventually. But on that note, let's kick things off with our first prediction of the evening. I think this show is cursed. I just sat down to render the final product, put everything together, and somehow my opening prediction got cut in half well in advance of my actual breakdown of the fight. So here I am recording this well after everything else is recorded. So my opening fight of the night, takes place in the UFC's bantamweight division, featuring Alejandro Perez of Mexico. 18 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. I'm completely thrown off now. Taking on the Asian sensation Andre Soukhamthath with a current record of 11 wins and 4 defeats. Now, looking at both of these men, they're coming off fights actually with the same individual, Albert Morales. Very interesting. You don't often see that. Soukhamthath lost a split decision at UFC 209. Pretty good fight. Perez actually had a draw with Morales back in September where Perez lost a point. And I felt he was actually already behind. I was shocked. I had Perez to win that match. I was shocked to hear a draw announced in that bout. Perez is 2-0-1 over his last 3 appearances, but hasn't fought in 10 months. Soukhamthath had won 3 in a row prior to making his debut. His previous loss to his last fight was against Brian Kelleher, a current UFC fighter as well. Physically, Soukhamthath 3 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage. Perez is the younger man by a year. Now, when you look at Perez, he's not a flashy fighter by any stretch of the imagination, but he does some things well. He's very well experienced. I was very impressed with the manner in which he stayed calm under pressure against Ian Entwistle, who was driving for leg locks and attacking his legs. He was able to defend, capitalize on the poor position his opponent gave himself, and eventually finished him. He also dealt relatively well with the aggression of Morales. Not as good as he could have, but certainly held his own. Obviously, he didn't lose the fight, so there you go. He uses some pretty good head movement, but again, he was letting Morales in that matchup back him up and was looking to counter-strike, and that's something you need to be very mindful of, is how is the judge perceiving what you are doing? How the judge is perceiving what you are doing? Are you being too passive, allowing your opponent to push the pace? And I would say Perez was certainly walking that fine line. He has lots of movement overall, likes to set up his offense with that movement, moves laterally to avoid his opponent's forward pressure. He tends to throw in combinations. He's got a pretty big overhand right, some solid leg kicks, which really can do a lot of damage. We saw in the Scott Jorgensen fight, they certainly turned that matchup in his favor, and eventually he hurts Jorgensen's leg and finished him. He does get a little bit predictable at times with those leg kicks. He needs to set them up better. Morales was having success counter-striking when those leg kicks did come slamming in, so we'll see if that's something he tunes up here. Trims up? No. Fixes up. Whatever. Oh, and I forgot to turn my phone off. Just shows that this show is just... I'm going to go perfect in the show because the actual episode is just not going well. There goes my text message. It made me jump. Back to the fighting. At times... where did I fucking leave off? Yeah. I'm going to keep going with this because why not? It's late here. He came out very aggressive in the 3rd round against Morales, and I liked what I saw. I want to see more of that. Be aggressive, push forward, find that happy medium of aggression and counter-striking to eventually, score more points with the judges. His takedown defense is good. He uses the underhook to elevate his opponent once they come in, raising them up, raising their level makes it harder to complete that takedown. And that's something I don't expect to see tested too much here. Now, Soukhamthath, he's willing to exchange. He's got some pretty good pop in his hands. He likes to sit in the pocket. He's got a quick left jab. He'll follow with power strikes. And when he sits in that pocket, though, he uses movement to just kind of avoid and slip his opponent's offense and then fires back with single shots. He throws a nice left hook to the body. He threw it on multiple occasions against Morales where he was simply just spamming it to the body. He mixed in some knees, but he had Albert in a lot of trouble but couldn't finish him. At times, especially early on, he was getting cracked, and he looked a little bit tentative when he was getting hit, wasn't pushing forward. When he did launch forward, that's when he had his most success, but he just wasn't doing it enough. Defensively, he's not great. He gets hit a lot. Again, he was getting cracked by the leg kicks of Morales. Combinations were certainly giving him issues as well. Not moving his head, sitting in the middle of the cage, just waiting to be hit. His takedown defense is all right. He uses wrestling primarily as a way to stay defensive and stay vertical. You know, he did go for a takedown later in that fight against Morales where he was tired, got reversed, and ultimately lost the matchup as a result. He is 1-4 in decisions. His style does not equate well to longer fights. That kind of is indicative of that record. So that's worth noting as well. Now, this fight's taking place in Mexico, which favors Perez because he's fighting at home, he's fighting in front of the home crowd, and the judges tend to, can be swayed by the crowd as well. But also, we're fighting in Mexico City here, people. There's an elevation factor, and I don't think that's going to suit well with Soukhamthath, who tends to gas out a little bit. There's my phone again, lovely. Close fight early. I think Soukhamthath will pressure him, comes up. That's actually going to be a mistake here. Perez will survive. He will start to take over once Soukhamthath starts to fade. Look for those leg kicks to really take away the base of Andre and shut down some of his aggression. And my prediction is Alejandro Perez to defeat Andre Soukhamthath by decision. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in the UFC's middleweight division and will feature Smilin' Sam Alvey, 30 wins, 9 losses, and 1 no contest, taking on the former UFC light heavyweight champion, Sugar Rashad Evans, currently holding the record of 24 wins, 6 defeats, and 1 draw. Now, Alvey's coming off a fight that kind of determined where his ceiling is in the division. He has lost fights predominantly to fighters who fight strategically and are able to overcome his specific style. That's what Talis Latis did, and that's what most fighters will do. When he hurts a certain level, he can't get any further. Evans made his middleweight debut in his last appearance, lost a 15-minute decision to Dan Kelly. He has lost 3 consecutive bouts and 5 of 7. He needs a win in this matchup in the worst way possible. Now, it's interesting to note that Evans, who lost to Kelly via decision, when Kelly took on Sam Alvey knocked him out in 49 seconds flat. So a pretty quick and definitive victory for Alvey versus Evans, losing that matchup. Physically, Sam Alvey, 2 inches taller, will have the same reach. He is 7 years younger than Sugar Rashad. Now, Alvey has massive knockout power. We are well aware of that. He has 18 wins by knockout for his career. In the other 20 fights he's had that didn't end via knockout, he has 12 wins and 8 losses. So certainly you see the importance of him being able to stop his opponent, and he is 9-7 in fights that go the distance. He, for the most part, is a counter striker that likes to sit back, let his opponents come to him, and then land bombs as they move into range. He also relies heavily on his counter wrestling to keep him vertical when faced with opponents look to take him down. 85% takedown defense, so far so good for Sam Alvey, at least in his victories. The problem is, if he can't score the finish, Alvey's lack of volume becomes a huge issue. He carries a negative striking exchange rate, but his output numbers have been improved. His offensive output, his offense, of course, his strikes landed are skewed by the fact that after he hurts his opponent, he's able to unload with several shots. So the actual striking exchange rate in, one-on-one scenarios, not where one fighter's kind of concussed and almost on the verge of being finished, are even worse. Alvey struggles to keep up with opponents for the most part when he's not knocking them out. You look at some of his striking totals against Latis: 27 strikes landed against Nate Marquardt, 36, Theodoro, 24. His first 3 UFC wins all came with single-digit strikes landed. He's able to knock guys out, but he doesn't put up a lot of offense leading up to the knockout. And if those big moments don't come, he's in trouble. Theodoro showed the blueprint for beating him. Talis Latis followed it. Clinch or sit on the outside and pick your shots, land kicks, keep him out of range. Don't walk into anything. He's a counter striker versus punching combinations, but again, Talis Latis and Theodoro both used a kick-heavy offense to really take away what Alvey is able to do. It limited his ability to counter strike and land those shots effectively. Additionally, Alvey tends to stand a little bit straight up and down, throws a lot of single strikes at times. He needs to be more aggressive and push forward. Now, looking at Rashad Evans here. Evans is fighting for the second time at 185 pounds. You would think his body is more adjusted. Is he ready to be pushed? Again, fighting at altitude. He had a near-year layoff in his last matchup. So, again, he should be in better condition, better shape coming into this fight, I would think. His key weapons are a right hand and a right kick, which he throws against a southpaw. That's something he needs to throw. But again, in the past, he has struggled against southpaws. Dan Kelly's a southpaw. Little Nog's a southpaw. Both guys he had a lot of issues with that he was unable to find success against and lost both fights. He does throw pretty quick combinations. He's got a head kick finish in there against that right high kick against the southpaw, which is certainly something he can look for. He'll use speed to attack, get in on the inside, land, and get out and go to work. Evans, though he struggles with anything significant or enough strikes to outwork Kelly, he couldn't do enough in that matchup to win that fight. Simply, it wasn't there. Kelly just kept plugging away and doing his job. I think in this fight, Alvey has to be a little bit more aggressive, find a better balance of aggression versus counter-striking. He did that against Alex Nicholson in that decision victory. He's able to push forward. Evans isn't a big volume striker himself. He lacks that significant output, especially in the kicking department. He relies too much on his hands, which actually plays directly into Sam Alvey's offense. I think Alvey's going to land more strikes. He's potentially going to hurt him, and he'll get the better of the majority of the exchanges. And my prediction is Sam Alvey to defeat Sugar Rashad Evans by knockout. The next fight on the main card takes place in the UFC's welterweight division and features Alan Brahma Jouban, 15 wins and 5 losses, taking on Niko, the hybrid Price, currently with an undefeated record of 10 wins, no losses, no draws, and 1 no contest. Now, Jouban is coming off a difficult defeat against Gunnar Nelson. It was his opportunity to move up the rankings. He had won 3 in a row, including beating Mike Perry and Bilal Muhammad, which are pretty sizable wins over guys who are being very successful in their own right. For Niko Price, he stunned Brandon Thatch and continued his downward trend with a submission win, and he KO'd Alex Moreno in his last fight. Unfortunately, it was overturned due to a failed marijuana test, but it was still a very good performance by Price, at least the finish was. There were some issues leading up to it, which we'll talk about. Both men physically 6 feet tall, 3-inch reach advantage for Price, and he's the younger man by 8 years. Now for Niko, he has 6 wins by knockout, 2 submission wins, 1 victory on the scorecards. He has 7 first-round finishes, compared to Alan Jouban, 9 knockouts, 2 losses by knockout, 1-1 fights ended by submission, and 5-2 on the scorecards. Price, he showed some different looks in his last fight, but for the most part, he's kind of viewed as a functional brawler. Likes to overwhelm opponents with this high-paced barrage of strikes, push forward, land something significant, and just beat them down after you hurt them. Against Moreno, he looked much more controlled, more mature, if you will, not throwing as much, not as mobile as I'd like to see him be, but not nearly as aggressive and focusing a little more on defense. He did hurt Moreno with a counter left, jumping ahead there. He throws some good offense, good kicking game, head kick, body kick, he'll throw a push kick to the body as well. He was trying to bait Moreno into pushing forward so he could counter. He was having mixed results with that. He was hurt on a couple times in that fight. He was hurt with a counter left hook. He was getting tagged with combinations and counters when he tried to sit back and let them come in. He was getting tagged with the combos. And then when he tried to push forward, because it kind of became predictable, he was getting countered as well. He actually was knocked down a couple of times in that fight, and just, again, combination striking, not dealing with it very well, and getting caught in the end of his strikes and put down. Where he did start to find a little bit of success is when he pushed forward, walked around, kind of got back to what brought him to the dance, that aggression, that high-paced, throw your hands, see what happens type of attack. He dropped him at the end of the second round and finished him with a flirt. It was impressive. He knocked him out. One of those unfortunate things where Moreno got knocked out. No one knew he was knocked out because the round ended, and they realized, oh shit, he's not just laying here collecting himself. He is actually out cold. It's worth noting he has 7 first-round finishes, 2 fights ending in the second round. He's only been to the third round on 1 occasion, which he won a fight by decision. So he doesn't have a lot of experience, and he appeared to be slowing down a little bit in that fight. He is a BJ Brown belt. He can do work on the mat. Again, we saw him exploit Thatch's takedown defense and sub-D. Good fight IQ overall, but still not... he's still trying to find himself a little bit based on his last appearance. Now for Jouban, he's got significant power, does his best work in close range. He took out Walsh with an elbow in tight. He threw some nice head kicks versus Brendan O'Reilly to stop him. He's a capable distance striker, but he's not nearly as comfortable on the outside. Tends to wait on his opponents a little bit too much, but he's getting better. When he fought Bilal Muhammad, he dropped him with a left hand and then a head kick. Again, he's a southpaw, so that back leg high kick is available for him to throw. When he fought Albert Tumanov, he was tagged a couple times, had a lot of trouble backing him off, couldn't deal with his pressure. He improved in the Mike Perry fight, dealing with pressure better and not allowing Perry to walk him down like Einstein was able to walk him down and put pressure on him. Some of his offensive weapons, again, good head kick, hard body kick. He'll fake kicks, actually force reactions, and then deploy his offense, which leaves his opponent a little vulnerable and allows him to see how they're going to defend this. Okay, now I'll throw it here instead. Also look for him to throw a hard straight left hand. He does a nice job of circling, attacking, circling, again, kind of attack but diffuse the offense that's coming back his way. Again, Perry was backing him up, but he was doing a good job of avoiding a lot of the offense, or at least absorbing it and not getting himself knocked out. He won the fight as a result. Takedowns, decent. He landed a couple against Perry in that matchup. Again, he hasn't really been put on his back too often. 62% takedown defense. Gunnar Nelson did submit him after knocking him down, so, take it for what it's worth. One of the big issues with Jouban has been his chin. It's a bit questionable. He was hurt by Baczynski. He was hurt by Thiago Alves. Dwyer hurt him. Nelson obviously dropped him. Tumanov stopped him. He's got 2 knockouts for his career. So some people have some questions about his ability to take a punch if somebody connects square, and certainly Price has shown he can stop guys on the regional level if he's able to hurt them. Now, Price struggled with the combinations and activity of Moreno. Moreno was moving well, throwing a lot, and that gave him a lot of issues. Jouban has to avoid being drawn into a brawl here. I think Jouban's going to deal with the pressure early on, land more volume, circle away, and take over as Price starts to slow down with the altitude issue. And my prediction is Alan Jouban to defeat Niko Price by decision. We move now to the co-main event of the evening, and for that matchup, it will go down in the women's strawweight division as the 9th-ranked fighter in the division, Randa, the Quiet Storm Markos, 7 wins and 5 losses, Iraqi-born, Canadian-raised, will take on Mexico's own Alexa Grasso with a current record of 9 wins and 1 defeat. Now, Markos is coming off a huge but somewhat controversial split decision upset over former champion Carlos Esparza. It certainly brought Markos back to relevance. She has alternated wins and losses over her last 9 fights, with no back-to-back victories since the first 3 fights of her pro career, which she won all of them. For Grasso, she is coming off her first career loss. She beat Heather Jo Clark in her debut, but lost to Felice Herrig in her next appearance, a fight that I correctly predicted. I was very proud of that prediction. Grasso, 1 inch taller, 3-inch reach advantage, and she is 8 years younger than the Canuck. Now, Grasso comes from a boxing background. She can generate a lot of power inside, very crisp striking. She's very accurate. She, relatively quick hands, especially if she gets in close and lets those hands go. Her only stoppage under the Invicta banner came via uppercuts. She'll throw some hard body kicks. She will target the liver, and she throws a nice front end roundhouse kick to the head as well. She didn't finish Heather Jo Clark, who's very tough, but she hurt her badly. She had her bloodied and was rocking her on multiple occasions in that matchup, so certainly she did some damage. Now, she's not a huge volume striker. She has a tendency to wait on her opponents before engaging and can be backed up if she's put under pressure. In her last matchup against Herrig, she was waiting way too much early on. She found more success later in the fight as she pushed forward and kind of put some pressure on Herrig. That's when she did her best work. But certainly she struggled early on letting her hands go. When she fought Clark, she did have some success pinning her on the cage, landing short punches and knees, elbows in close. She does a nice job of using that forearm to frame and hold that position where she can then unload and kind of, expose some of those parts that you want to target. Clark kind of turned the tables on her in that fight a little bit. She started to push forward in rounds 2 and 3, and that's when she had her greatest success as well. Herrig, one of the big things she did very well, she threw her nice right hand, and it was routinely getting through. Grasso has a tendency to drop her left hand and keep her head still when she's striking, and Herrig picked up on this and started slamming that right hand, and every time Grasso came forward, there was an opening for it, and Herrig exploited it. The takedown defense, we've seen Grasso look decent with her takedown defense, shutting opponents down, but she can be taken down. She'll work hard to get up. She'll attack off her back if necessary to try and get out of a tough position. But she tends to stand a little bit tall, and at times she hesitates when she knows her opponent might look to take her down, and that's something Herrig, is a pretty good grappler in her own right. And Felice threatened with it enough just to show the Grasso, it's something we can do if you want to, and it seemed to back her off. Now, looking at Markos, she is a BJJ purple belt. Only averages 1.13 takedowns per fight, but she had taken everyone down prior to fighting Carlos Esparza, who she was unable to take off her feet, but still had a lot of success on the ground with her scrambling and her counter grappling. She has 3 wins by submission, all early in her career, all by armbar. She did beat Tecia Torres with a ground-based decision victory on The Ultimate Fighter, and she submitted the aforementioned Felice Herrig in the tournament quarterfinals, I believe. Now, when she fought Karolina Kowalkiewicz, she didn't have a lot of success with her grappling, but the one opportunity she did get, she got on her back, held position, and did a very good job of maximizing that situation. Didn't get to do enough to win the fight, but still you can see that was her forte, is getting that fight to the ground. She's a good scrappler. It's a combination of scrambler and grappler. She's a good scrambler, if you will. Sorry. But again, against Courtney Casey, she got way too aggressive, lost position, got submitted. So again, she needs to find that happy medium of pressure and aggressiveness, but not putting herself out of a position where she's going to, lose a fight or just lose the position altogether. On her feet, she throws very hard, predominantly from the right side. She has some pop in her hands. She can be a little bit too predictable, but we have seen her use that left jab a little more to set up that right hand. She'll throw in flurries. She can dirty box in the clinch along the cage. She's getting better as a striker, using a lot more movement. She used a lot of fakes and feints against Esparza to draw out her offense. She circled away to avoid damage. She showed improved footwork. She's actually recently changed camps and using a variety of camps to train out of, and I think that's helping her out. In this fight, Markos needs to be unpredictable, needs to be active, mixing in takedowns, throw that right hand, counter with it as Grasso comes forward. She can't just stand in front of her. That's crucial. I don't think she will. I think Grasso is just simply too tentative with the threat of being taken down, and she's open from the from offense from the right side from her opponent. I think that's what Markos is going to do exceptionally well, is land that right-handed offense. I think it's going to be a close fight, and it's very difficult to look at this fight and say, I'm going to pick against the Mexican fighter fighting in Mexico in a very close fight. I think Randa's going to use her takedowns and more volume to get the better of this matchup. That forward pressure will be crucial, and my prediction is Randa Markos to defeat Alexa Grasso by decision. We move now to the main event of the evening, and for that fight, it takes place in the UFC's flyweight division as the 6th-ranked Sergio Pettis, 15 wins and 2 losses, takes on Mexico's own assassin baby, the 7th-ranked fighter in the division, Brandon Moreno, currently holding a record of 14 wins and 3 losses. Now, this is a flyweight bout between two individuals who are both looking to position themselves for a shot at the title, probably somewhere in 2018. Demetrius Johnson, the champion, has actually been calling for a fight with Sergio Pettis, saying, that's a fight I want to have happen. I think it's a marketable matchup. So obviously he's on the radar, and a win here puts him that much closer to that opportunity. Pettis has won 3 in a row since his loss to Ryan Benoit, shocking upset defeat. He's won 5 of 6, and his 2 losses in the UFC both came in fights where he was actually winning prior to getting finished. So that's worth noting there. For Moreno, he has won 11 consecutive bouts, 3 inside the octagon, a split against the aforementioned Benoit. He submitted Louis Smolka and Dustin Ortiz. He is the only man ever to have submitted either one of those individuals, who are both very, very good ground fighters. So it's very impressive that he's able to tap both of them out. Physically, Moreno 1 inch taller. He'll have a 1 inch reach advantage. They are the same age. Moreno's a couple months younger. Like that matters at this point. Pettis is a black belt in Taekwondo, a BJJ purple belt. He is a slick combination striker with excellent boxing and a very, very good kicking arsenal to back up his hands. He throws a nice right jab. He'll double and triple it up and then step in with a slick straight left. Very smooth. His confidence in his striking has skyrocketed over his last couple of fights, and it's very noticeable in the cage. As I mentioned, he throws a variety of kicks, inside leg kicks, high kicks. He'll lead with a jab and then follow with a kick very effectively. I really like the way he puts those two techniques together. He does a nice job of controlling the center of the octagon, fighting at distance, and a distance that he prefers, leads the exchanges, and makes his opponent compete at his range, not theirs. He'll switch stances, and he moves away very well under attack. Now, his power isn't earth-shattering, but we saw him hurt John Moraga on multiple occasions. So, again, as he gets a little bit bigger, as he gets a little bit stronger, as physically he develops, because he's a very young man, 23 now, we're going to see that power develop as well. He's still very quick. He's still very accurate with his offense. He rocked Moraga with a nice right hook. He rocked him later on with a left hook as well, a straight right land that put him on his keister. Very impressive. And, his offensive wrestling has improved of late. He's landed 7 takedowns over his last 3 appearances while giving up just 2. 71% takedown defense. It has been something he's struggled with, especially early in his UFC career. Has he tightened it up, or has he just not been tested? Well, we'll find out in this matchup. One of the concerning things with Pettis, he seems to have a momentary lapse in most of his fights where he either gets taken down or clipped with a strike. Sometimes it costs him, sometimes it doesn't. But it's one of those things that as he, again, matures, he will kind of iron out of his game. But certainly it's worth, thinking about against an opportunistic fighter like Moreno. Now, for Moreno, he actually replaced Sergio Pettis in his win over Smolka, which is noteworthy there. He's incredibly aggressive. He's incredibly dangerous on the mat, and he's rounding out his striking. When he fought Smolka, he simply... I refer to Smolka as a suicide grappler. He will put himself in bad positions to eventually work out of it and get the better of you. Well, he wasn't able to work out of it. Moreno submitted him. Very impressive. Very impressive. We saw Moreno use a takedown heavy attack against Benoit because Benoit was throwing some heavy leather and has the ability to knock guys out. He'll shoot single legs, he'll shoot doubles, he'll go for that body lock takedown, anything he can to get his opponent on the mat. But on the flip side, he showed pretty decent takedown defense against Tito Ortiz. No, against Dustin Ortiz, who was putting pressure and looking to take him down. He defended. He actually attacked with a Kimura on a couple of occasions to try and he's not meaning to submit his opponent. He's simply looking to make them defend something and then allow himself to get back to his feet. He's a good scrambler, and we actually saw him sweep Ortiz. And Ortiz is a very good ground fighter, and Moreno eventually was able to sweep the top position, which was very impressive. On the feet, he's got a good chin. He was getting cracked with some big strikes in that fight and eating them. He did get knocked down by Benoit with a big left hand, but still, for the most part, his chin's pretty solid. Offensively, with his striking, it's a work in progress, but it is improving. He throws a decent left jab. He'll throw a lot of low kicks. He will go high periodically. He mixes a turning side kick with relatively, average success. His strikes do tend to come a little bit, wide at times. He'll overextend on some of his punches. I saw him throw an uppercut a couple times and it didn't connect, and it wasn't going to connect, and it looked kind of ridiculous. But still, as he matures, as he gets better, he will tighten that stuff up. He throws a lot of low kicks. He'll mix in that left jab. That high kick was ultimately put Ortiz down, and it changed the complexion of that fight because Ortiz was winning that matchup before he got cracked in the back of the head with a high kick, put on the mat, and eventually submitted. Overall, in this fight, Pettis is the vastly superior striker. His style is less erratic, more composed. It's actually more suited to fight at a higher altitude. If he can remain composed, we will see the more aggressive, more erratic, more, brawling nature of Moreno catch up with him. He'll start to slow down quicker, and Pettis will still be there throwing what he throws and doing what he does best. Ultimately, Moreno was losing to Ortiz. He was close against Ryan Benoit, and he capitalized on Smoka's lack of urgency on the mat for the finish there. So those are all big wins. But they're the type of wins where it still leaves a lot to be desired. He's never been super dominant in any one appearance. He's had his moments, he's got the job done in those moments, and that's it. I think ultimately in this fight, Pettis is going to defend the takedowns, he's going to land the superior strikes, he's going to hurt him, and I think he's going to finish him, actually. So my prediction is Sergio Pettis to defeat Brandon Moreno by TKO. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 114. Before you start commenting, yes, I left a main card fight off. Yes, I'm going to try and predict it in the preliminary section at my website, kamikazeoverdrive.net, so please check that out. I will do my best to get them done as quickly as possible. I'm running a little bit behind, which I'm totally fine with. I've just been preoccupied of late with, life. And, so I'll do my best to catch that up. If you have any questions, obviously you can email me through the contact page of my website. You can find me on Twitter at KO_predictions. You can also hit me up on Facebook. Just search me out and you'll find me there. And it's the last UFC prediction show anyway for almost a month. I will, hopefully, I'll do a UFC 214 post-fight video once this event is over. I'll probably cover both events inside that on that show. And, things are interesting of late, so we'll see how things keep going. I hopefully will have an update or two for you over the next month regarding that jiu-jitsu blue belt who is... helping me to understand more what it's like to grapple and what it's like to be in certain situations. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll have something more to tell you there. And as always, thank you very much for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate everything and everything you have to say, the kind words and the thumbs up on the YouTube page and everything else. Take care, and I'll talk to you when I talk to you. See you soon. Bye.